Okay, so when Jimmy gets killed, that sparks a war.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the names that came up when you start looking into the murder was Billy Ray Tolbert.
Yes.
So who was Billy Ray?
So before I even address that, Billy Ray Tolbert has a mother, and I understand that what took place, I can't imagine the amount of pain and suffering that was caused to her. So, sincere apology can't fix that. But Billy Ray Tolbert was a kid that was up and coming in the game, that he decided that his way of doing it was going to be robbing and killing. And that's what he did. He had a reputation of at least 4 or 5 situations where it ended up like that. Somebody brought that to my attention, and one day I saw him and Jimmy talking in the store, and I went over there and I spoke to him and I said, bro, listen, I don't care what is it you're doing out there, that's your business, because you don't have no idea like what my background is. But I want to say something to you. If something happens to Jimmy in the course of doing business with you, I'm going to come and see you. So of course he took offense to that, because that's kind of like a threat, right? So he says, man, why you coming to me like that? Jimmy, my man, we grew up together, blah, blah, blah. I said, bro, listen, I hear you. What I just said, that's what it is. And Jimmy, hey, bro, hold up, this is my man. Jimmy, we talk later. So anyway, things kind of settled, and I asked him to leave, because at that point, we were kind of going back and forth based on what I said. So he left. Then later on, Jimmy spoke to him, he spoke to me, and he came back to the store some other day, and we spoke, and I told him before he left, what I said stand. I apologize if I offended you, but I had to be direct with you. A month and a half later, something like that, they still went ahead and did it. They killed him. They robbed him. Because Jimmy was trusting that way. In a game that we use all these words like integrity and loyalty and all this stuff, but it's an upside down kingdom where bad is good and good is bad. So we were living lies, but that's what we were doing.
So Billy Ray Tolbert, who was 19 at the time, was found bound, gagged, and tortured and shot to death. And they say that this was in retaliation to Jimmy getting killed.
Yeah. I was convicted of that. I mean, we got the case overturned. I know we're going to talk about that later, but eventually I pled guilty to that. Yes.
Okay. So later on, you were charged with this murder.
Correct.
Okay. And since you've done the time already, what was your role in the murder?
I was blind. I was blinded by revenge. I was always left in this position with my friends where they get killed, and I'm in a position where I'm always trying to retaliate, So, but to answer your question directly, Billy thought that he played his card out well, because by them taking him back to the club, it made it seem like it was some other stuff. But what happened is that once I realized he was dead that morning, we went to the store and we was gonna clean. My plan was to clean up everything in the store. Even though he was a victim, I still didn't want to take for granted that maybe they'll come and search, so we want to clean. So when we're trying to clean up, we can't find the product, we can't find the money. So I'm thinking Jimmy probably moved everything. So I went downstairs, you could imagine people crying, there's chaos going on because we just found out he's dead. So I went downstairs to the basement because I needed to hear myself think and to clear my thoughts, because I'm in a position of leadership. And when I went downstairs, I put a stool and I sat on the stool and I smelled his cologne. I used to tease him about putting on too much cologne. He used to flood himself in cologne, bro. And I smelled his cologne and I said, oh shit, he was here. He was here. He was here, bro. So I called my soldiers. I said, bro, stop searching. That shit ain't here. I said, what you talking about? It was a jokes. It was a robbery. What you mean? I said, they found him over there. I said, bro, we dealing with a different animal right now. These dudes transported him over there. So that's when I realized it was that. So then they told me that they saw him in the club with Billy. And that was it for me, it was clear. So I said, I gotta get this dude. So we went out hunting, looking for him. Because the plan was just on site. But I didn't find him. I couldn't find him. And so I said, but if he did it that way, he gotta show his face because it wasn't him. So I beeped him and he responded just like I thought. And he said, what's up? And I told him, I said, yeah, he said, sorry, he heard about what happened to Jimmy. He was just with him in the club, this and that. And I said, yeah. I said, I kind of know who did it. It had to do something with it had something to do with a girl, but I can't send my own people. I need to outsource. So I need to see you in person because I might need your assistance with that. So he paused for a few seconds and he said, all right. And then we agreed to meet that same day, but we met, I wanted him to feel comfortable, so we met in somewhere like outside, like on the avenue. But what he didn't know that it was a building right across from where we was at, that we had that building. That building was ours. And so when we got there, we were talking, I was running my narrative of what I thought happened. And then I said to him, look, bro, I got a gun on me, I got a vest on me, and we on the avenue. I'm not too good with this. Matter of fact, I know a girl right here, let's go in here and finish talking. And I saw when he paused for those seconds and knew that he was gambling. But he had to gamble it all the way. Or just right then and there, just pull out his gun and everybody just go. So he went, and when he went in, the team was in there. And so when we went in, he was like, I'm still playing because I always kept in mind what they did to Jimmy, how they psychologically played with his mind before they did what they did to him. So I went in the bathroom and I came back out with my Glock in my hand. I sat down beside him. I said, you got a gun on you? He said, before he could answer, it was on him. They searched him. I said, bro, I know what happened last night. He said, nah, it wasn't me, this and that, blah, blah, blah. I said, it was you. It was you. So, they gagged him up and took him in the room, started working him. And I went back in the room a little while later and I asked him, I said, man, I'm gonna give you a way out. You could call your friends and tell them to come over and I'll give you a pass. Because I wanted everybody that night. And he said, nah, it wasn't me, and he wasn't gonna call him. So I looked at him and I said, bro, I'm not gonna lie to you. I respect you. You won't sell your friends out. You won't come clean. I said, in another lifetime, you and I probably would have rolled together, but on this one, we can't. So he started lunging, doing like this. I thought that he was kind of just nervous, anticipating that what was going to happen was inevitable. And he launched himself back and crashed through a window that was behind him on the bed, in an attempt to jump out the window, and he knocked himself out unconscious. So he's hanging in and out. Somebody panic, goes out, shoot him up. Things just get a little out of hand from that point. And yeah, and then that was that. We took him and left him somewhere, and then I called his friends. I beeped them and I said, hey, how you doing, bro? They said, all right. I said, man, I just saw Slim. You gonna get your message from me? I need y'all help with something. And then they found him, and then they knew what time it was. It was on.